Hello everyone, welcome to Lockdown Series. I'm Omkar Singh, your Vice President for Business and Law Faculty at ARE Students Union. Today we are joined by Daniel Zeichner, he is the Member of the Parliament of Cambridge. Hi Daniel, how are you?
Hi, Omkar. Very good to see you. Very well.
Good to see you too. Thanks for joining us today. These sessions are to bring awareness on mental health and well-being among students, especially these times. So, do you have any tips or advices that you would like to suggest to?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking me, and good wishes to everybody at ARU. I think this is a really, really big question, and it's something that in Parliament we have been talking about for some time before the COVID crisis, because we're well aware of the pressures on students. And of course, ARU Students' Union has done some very good research. And a couple of years ago, I think showing something like 26% of people coming to ARU had pre-existing mental health issues. So it's not a new issue, but it is made so much more difficult, I fear, by the lockdown. You very kindly asked me what tips I can offer. Well, I'm a politician, not a medic or a counsellor. So I suppose the first thing I'd say is, if it's getting really difficult, then seek professional advice and help. I know that is in itself an issue in the universities, because counselling services have been overburdened, under-resourced, many of us would argue. And in fact, I've been arguing that our National Health Service should be working more closely with universities, because I don't think that this is entirely a responsibility for universities. But if anyone's feeling anxious, feeling lonely, then please ask for help. And if you can't get help from the counselling services, look to people close by, because never ever struggle with stuff on your own. But I suppose what I would say in general is that I think it's different for different people. Some people I've noticed have not found the lockdown as difficult as others, and I think that depends partly on personality type. Some of us actually find socialising quite an effort sometimes. Others can't live without it. So different people will respond differently to the circumstances of lockdown, and it's not that one is right and one is wrong. We're just not all the same. But depending upon that, I think particularly if you're the kind of person that needs company, then it's very important to make sure you do keep finding ways of interacting with others. Now, at the moment, often it's going to be Zoom, and it's going to be phoning and that kind of thing. But I think the biggest thing I'd say, and maybe I'm biased, I'm a Shadow Environment Minister, and I've been talking in Parliament all week about nature and the biodiversity. But it does strike me that getting out, walking, breathing in fresh air, enjoying what Cambridge has got to offer, and I know not everywhere has got green space, especially around Petersfield, but actually if you go just a little bit further, if you can get as far as the back, it's great, but if not, Parker's Piece, just a few minutes walking, I think actually the advice is that makes a huge difference. It's good physically. It also almost inevitably means, obviously, respecting social distancing, you will come in contact with others, whether it's a smile, just a hello, and I think that makes a huge difference. So those would be my rather ill-informed tips, I'm afraid, Omkar, but I suspect it'll be different for different people.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for that. So I understand how busy your schedule might be, and you being a parliamentarian. How do you cope up with your mental health at this age and this age?
Well, it's a good question. It's not just me; it's my colleagues. I have some really hard-working staff who, in some cases, I haven't seen for months because they are isolated. So, in some ways, it follows on from my previous answer. We talk a lot on the phone. We talk a lot on Zoom. It's not the same as being physically in the same room. How I cope, I guess, in some ways, a highly pressured job like being a member of Parliament. Some of us thrive on pressure. I've had a particularly pressured few weeks. I was on my feet 3 hours in committee the other day, and there was a lot of preparation for that. And actually what I found was the coming down was harder. Going back to normally you go back to an office and you'd probably share it with your colleague. You go back to an empty office and it kind of feels more difficult. So actually my answer has been quite often to do what I've just been suggesting. For me, going out, having a wander around Cambridge, walk along the river. I live in Victoria Road, quite close to the river. Walking along by the riverbank, I find relaxing and allows me to unwind. So it's that kind of approach. Being outside really helps me.
Yeah. Do you think hobbies can also play a good role in mental health? And what kind of hobbies you prefer to for your?
Well, I would agree with that. What I would say is being an MP is kind of pretty all-consuming. I hate to think the amount of time I spend on it. I'm often at work at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not complaining, I love it. I'm often not leaving work until 8 or 9 at night. So it's not kind of a lot of space. But yes, I'm a keen sports fan. I follow Cambridge United. I now have to follow on online on iFollow, but actually still the week in week out drama of following your football club I think can be great. I used to go to Kettle's Yard a lot. Enjoyed music and concerts. I think again it's different for different people, but I think if you're struggling a bit, finding something to divert and to be interested in, I think is absolutely key. But that's easily said, and in some ways it's so much easier when you're feeling happy and upbeat. It's really hard when you're just struggling to get yourself going, and those times it's absolutely right that you look for help and support from others.
Thank you so much for that. Just I want to quickly ask two more questions. When I informed the AI students that I'm meeting you today, so one question which came in is students are keen in understanding and what kind of support financially that government is ready to give, especially during these times or during Christmas.
Well, I wish I could tell you the government was prepared to give some financial support or help. Obviously, I'm an opposition member, I'm a Labour member, and I'm deeply unimpressed, I'm afraid, by the government's response to this. Students, I think, have had a really, really hard time. I think a lot of people are, despite the really good efforts by universities to move to online teaching and blended teaching, it isn't the same thing that people signed up for. And the government, of course, has been completely resistant to responding to that. Their answer is that students should take it up individually with their individual institutions. Well, frankly, that is not going to work. So I'm really sorry to have to say to you that I don't think there is much. If there's something specific, a specific complaint or specific financial hardship, then it's the usual routes. But that's a pretty poor response, in my mind, from the government at a time of clear diminution of what is being available to students. I understand the problem a bit in the sense that I also recognise that universities have got to be financially sustainable, and we want them to be able to continue properly. So there is a balance to be struck, but I do think students had a rough deal this year, and really huge sympathy to people because it's been a really, really hard time. And I think in Cambridge it's slightly different. We're not quite got the campus situation that we're seeing in places like Manchester, but those scenes of people almost being fenced in were just ridiculous. And I don't think students have been treated with the respect that they deserve. And I do pay tribute, particularly in Cambridge. I think students have responded really, really responsibly to the calls to be careful and to maintain social distance. And I'm really proud of the response we've had in Cambridge.
Is there anything that your government is looking to lobby into this thing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've been making these arguments to them. Onkar, you'll know you've been in some of the calls with my colleague Paul Blomfield from the All-Party Group of Students. I have to say, as on so many other things, we're not getting much response, sadly, from the Minister. And I think it's disappointing. And I do think there was, from the beginning, an issue as to whether people should have been, in effect, forced to return to campus. But that was because the government refused to respond to the university's requests for financial assistance at the beginning of all this. So it's a chain reaction, really. And I think the government has been slow to issue guidance on a whole range of issues. And we just had the guidance a week or two ago on the end of this term, but we still haven't got any clarity on what happens after Christmas.
Can you please provide us any picture of from 2nd December to 25th till Christmas and how smooth it's going to look like?
Well, I wish I entirely knew. I've seen the guidance as you and others have. This notion of a kind of a phased return, but of course, part of the problem is government sometimes doesn't seem to recognise that the universities are different, quite different. And of course, a university like Anglia Ruskin, Chelmsford and Cambridge, many people who are not undergraduates in the sense that the public widely understands students to be, it's a very different kind of experience. So quite how that is going to play out, I'm not sure. And I think each university is going to have to, within the government framework, come up with advice that's appropriate to its particular student group. Say that my worry is that they've given guidance on people going home, although of course, as I say, quite a lot of people already are home, and this doesn't work in a lot of cases for international students or postgraduate students. But what they haven't done is really explain what will happen after Christmas, and that is, I think, needs to be clarified fairly soon because time is passing.
Yeah. So my last question to you: how you're celebrating Christmas this time?
I'm not a great Christmas person, really. For many years, I and my partner have spent Christmas Day with two very dear friends, and I think if you've got a big family, it's a lovely occasion. If you haven't got an extended family, sometimes it can be a very lonely time, actually. And we've experimented with different approaches over the years, but we, as I say, in the end, spending time with good friends and family is a wonderful thing. And of course, it's not just Christmas. We've seen a whole range of other celebrations, some of which have come and gone, other faiths. We do live, there's a slight danger in seeing Christmas as the only issue in this country. For many people, they've had, I'm afraid, to find ways of celebrating during lockdown, which is really, really tough. And it may still be that the scientific evidence shows that people are going to have to be careful at Christmas, because what we don't want to do is see the hard work that's been put in to keep the virus at bay, then suddenly undercut in a few days. And my slight worry is that particularly for grandparents and so on, we could be putting them at risk, and I don't think we want to do that.
Yeah, you're right. So, okay, thanks for joining us. Do you want to leave?
Pleasure.
Do you want to leave with any positive note?
Well, the more positive note is that we still have the privilege of living in a wonderful city with wonderful universities, despite the difficulties of the last few months. I hope people, certainly through the teaching, will have got benefit. I think the sadness is that people have missed out on the social life in what is a lovely city to live in. Let's hope that by being sensible over the next few months, and hopefully with a vaccine as well, we can begin to look forward to springtime in Cambridge, the bulbs, the flowers, and life beginning to be more like the life we used to know. And I hope that everyone who's studying at Anglia Ruskin and working at Anglia Ruskin can look forward to that with me, and that we can meet in person in a few months' time, which would be great.
Yeah, hope to see you sometime. Thank you so much for joining us. It was
Thank you.
appreciating, and yeah, all the best with your role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers. Bye.